So in the way that people are like, cannabis isn't a psychedelic, it's like, have you heard of the person who had too many edibles and was like, I gotta go to the hospital, I'm literally gonna have a heart attack? It's like,
I've heard of that person.
Most people have. Sometimes we've been that person.
I was that person. Angela, first of all, I want to start with the statement that I know made me have a little bit of a double take, maybe you guys as well, which was, quote, yes, cannabis is a psychedelic. Most people, I think, associate cannabis with like Cheetos and cartoons.
Yeah.
And I've heard in the past that cannabis is a psychoactive. So in your words, how is cannabis considered a psychedelic? And do you see that it fits in that sort of umbrella of a psychedelic when we think of the classics like mushrooms or LSD? How is cannabis a psychedelic?
Yeah, so I was the same. I did not view cannabis as a psychedelic. I would have used it to like numb for years. That's what I needed it for. That's what it provided for me. And I have since been working with it as like a medicine, which is now what I call it. It's like when I first interviewed for the training program that I ended up working with, the guy who interviewed me, he was like, cannabis is this goddess and she's this thing. And I was like, okay. It's like this cool drug, I guess. And now I will refer to it as a her. I feel like it is like this beautiful feminine energy. And so I guess to kind of explain how I feel it's a psychedelic, I can kind of explain my first experience of like having this psychedelic experience with it, which was when I was doing this training program. And it started with the same way I set it up with clients, that we do a smoking ceremony. So I go through the 7 directions. They will inhale on each direction. They lay down. They put an eye mask on, as you would with any kind of classic psychedelic, like internal session. And so as the session began, all of a sudden I could see my chakras. I never understood what they look like. I'd go to yoga studios, or I'd see those posters in the black market, for example. Be like, that does not resonate for me. Great. But all of a sudden,
for folks that aren't from Halifax, the black market you're referring to, which I assume is not the black market that most people might think.
No.
The illicit black market that exists where you can buy, elephant horns and
human organs.
Human organs. It's a hippie store here in Halifax.
Yeah. But we all do know those posters of the chakras.
Yes, we do.
In the
Yes, we
line,
do.
you can see them. It's like, it's beautiful, but it never resonated for me. And so in this experience, all of a sudden I could see my chakras, and the person who was guiding me, he said, you're so safe, you're so held. And all of a sudden I got this kick to my heart chakra, and this grief that had literally felt like it'd been like calcified to my body, that had been there for 15 years since the moment I had lost my dad very suddenly. It's like that grief just became one with my body. 7 years of therapy could not touch it. But the moment I was in this cannabis experience and I actually felt safe enough, my nervous system felt safe enough that I could let it go. And I just sobbed and released this grief that I had not been able to get in touch with any other way. And that was the first few minutes of my very first psychedelic cannabis experience. And after that, it has been a very life-changing journey for me. I've been able to heal in ways I haven't been able to heal, with any other really medicine. And I've been able to support other people. So you can have these really internal experiences. But it's often very somatic. So in the way that people are like, cannabis isn't a psychedelic, it's like, have you heard of the person who had too many edibles and was like, I gotta go to the hospital, I'm literally gonna have a heart attack? It's like,
I've heard of that person.
Most people have. Sometimes we've been that person.
I was that person.
And so the whole thing though is like, so negatively we can view it. It's like, oh, well, like I've had too big of an experience, or I've taken too much. It's like, well, what's actually happened is you haven't been in a safe space. It hasn't been a safe container. And what you're feeling, usually what people are actually feeling, is it's like cannabis will just shine a light on things. So people are like, I get paranoid, I get anxious. It's like, that's actually a part of you that's always there. And now we've just highlighted it. So instead, when you're in a safe space and you can connect to these things, what often happens is people are able to let go of things that they just can't let go of any other way, and usually in a very like body-centered space. So in the way that you might feel something in your chest and be like, oh, it's a tight chest, I would invite people like, let's breathe into that. Are there memories connected to it? Are there colors? Are there shapes or whatever? And getting to know this part of self, and then they can release it.
That's really fascinating. Like in the sense that I've used cannabis, smoked, eaten, drank 1,000 plus times in my life. I feel like that's even a low number.
Probably,
I
yeah.
think. I mean, 20 years, really. 20,
And sometimes
20 years almost.
for some period of time, multiple times a day.
like all day, every day for like a solid like 3 years. And I always found, I'll say that I also, the only times I'd never thought of it as being a psychedelic experience until you mentioned this experience with the chakras. And I went, oh, actually, you know what? I've been very involved in yoga in my life. And there's been like a handful of times that I can remember now where whether I, like smoked a joint and went to a yoga class or like did a meditation on my own. And it's only ever been in those more intentional moments where I've been like, but I more so saw it as the other thing that I was doing, not the cannabis, not the cannabis that I've had that experience. But also this thing where when I was very young, I mean, I've like my relationship with cannabis has like fluctuated a lot through the years. And there's been periods where I've been like, oh, I don't really smoke weed anymore. And when I was younger, like around like 18, 19, 20, when I'm going through this like big shift in my life of like who I am and what I want and what I'm doing, where thinking about what other people think of me was like a big problem. And so then when I would smoke, I would go, oh, perfect. This is like a place for me where I don't feel that anymore. And so I always kind of thought about it as like, oh, I'm taking this aspect of me that I can access when I've used cannabis, and I can like throw it back over the fence so that I can like go and pick some of that up when I'm not.
It's weird because it was like partly because I know this experience very well and was there with you for that. And like I always felt like it's in one part it is a coping mechanism. It's like, oh, I like the person I am that I can access when I'm high that I can't access when I'm not high.
Yeah.
But it was almost like what you're saying, Taylor, is that like those lessons that you learn of like acceptance and like, oh, I am actually,
they translated
I
back.
like this version of myself.
Yeah.
And like, why can't I be more comfortable
and
with
then they
person that I am?
translated back. But and then one of the reasons why weed has like fluctuated for me was that it then became kind of like the opposite. It was almost like
Yes.
It's almost like I was like, oh, sweet, I actually don't give a shit what anybody thinks about me anymore. And then when I smoke, I'll be like, I kind of care now.
It's funny. I thought you never ever give a fuck what people thought about you by the way you walked around the world.
I used to care.
And on that note, Jer, watch your hands when you're talking because you're coming up into.
Oh, good. Yeah. So,
but I do want to know what you like, how that lands with you, and like how that if that tracks in terms of like generalizations with cannabis use.
I mean, it kind of depends. What's really interesting is like I work with this particular blend, and when people are coming to work with me, it's like they're working to explore specific parts of self, or they want to heal something very specifically. And so it feels so much differently than when you're just smoking a joint. It's like, even for myself, it used to be like what I love is after the very first session when I work with someone and they're just like, this is what is like, they're just in awe. Like, I don't understand. This is not what I thought it was going to be. I don't believe that cannabis can make me, can allow me to work through these things. I just wouldn't have envisioned that. And then what happens is it changes the relationship with it.
yes.
So like I have to use it pretty intentionally now. I can't really use it recreationally. I can use it a little bit, but otherwise like I will go into like a journey space. I will process stuff. Sometimes my legs will twitch because I'm like letting energy out. It's like, and any of these like now I view as medicines, any psychedelic, like those are, it's hard to use them recreationally because it's like I've geared myself to be, and like I use them for healing. I try to use them for fun. And then I was like, I got to go sit down for a minute because like I just got to work through the shit that's come up. It's like, it's fine. It's safe. However, it's just kind of like I can't go and like party on them like I used to.
I don't want to go off in like a huge side tangent on this, but
Here we go.
but it's interesting because like as you know, what I would say is probably a more recreational drug user. And I'm talking specifically about cannabis, mushrooms and MDMA. When I use like MDMA, for example.
There goes your career in politics, Brian.
It's fine. I don't really want to be a politician. And also more politicians should do drugs. Like this. But like if I take MDMA, I find it to be a therapeutic experience, even if I'm like, dancing at the shore club or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about like the intentionality between like what maybe might be therapeutic as a recreational experience, but then the actual, like setting aside time to really do this in like
you
a
mean like the
therapeutic
difference
setting.
between what might be therapeutic versus actually
Almost like the ignorance
trying it to be
behind that
therapeutic.
statement of like, I do it in a therapeutic way,
yeah,
and it's.
But I don't think that's ignorance. And again, it's like person to person. I'm not a generalization kind of individual, because I feel like each person will do what works for them. And like I definitely, it's not that I would love to be able to use these more recreationally. To be honest, it's just what the journey I'm on presently. And I think it's about using whatever we're using intentionally. And but it's again a person to person. Like sometimes we just want to unwind. And so it's like, I'm going to use this to unwind. But I just remember when I was younger, people they're like, I'm going to go do mushrooms and I want to get real, there's like, I'm going to get messed up. And then they were shocked when they would have the worst time ever. I'm like, you asked for this.
Yeah.
You literally asked for this.
You said you wanted to be fucked up.
Yeah. And then that's what happened. Shocker. And so I think it's more so, I think it's about having like a reverence for these things. And it's like anytime I've heard of people having like a bad trip, it's because they're like, these things don't scare me or I'm fine. It's like whatever it is, it's like they could show me death and I'll be fine. I'm like, dude, you're going to die for like 8 hours. Good luck. So I think it's more so it's like, it's also these, like they have a chemical composition in our brain and it does make a difference. The only thing with like MDMA and psilocybin is that we can't have a serotonin drop after.
Yeah.
And so that's like the negative side effect that can come with using it therapeutically or recreationally. It's like if you're not aware of how it can impact you after, then that just can be a bit of a bummer. But I'm definitely not opposed to using these things recreationally, but I think it's individually, it's like, when does it become like something to enjoy or it becomes something that we're just like numbing?
I think that's the important part is like, I don't want to be like ignorant to the fact that, to the possibility that like my idea that this is therapeutic might actually be a coping, like using it as a coping mechanism where you're like, oh, I do this thing because it makes me feel good. It makes me have these introspective thoughts. But like, are you actually creating healthy thought patterns that like
so then integration is important.
Yeah.
It's about that. It's like, say you go and you like, you go to the short club and you party, and then it's like, but as you're there, you're like, oh shit, all this stuff's coming up. And then do you like shove it aside, or do you come back later and be like, I should probably sit with that? And that's kind of the more important piece. It's like with any of these, it's like people who have these big journeys, and like I'll talk to, because I do interviews still for a training program in Colorado, and it's like I'll interview people all the time who are stepping into this work. And so they'll be like, oh, I journey all the time, I use less. And I'm like, what do you do to integrate? And I'm like, oh, I take more medicine. I'm like, that's the wrong answer, actually. That's not how we integrate. We do everything else, and then we take more medicine when we can't get to the answers. It's like you need to be like, either it's talking to people, it's having community, it's journaling, it's therapy, it's like being out in nature, like it's art. The amount of ways we can integrate is huge. However, if you're like, you have this huge journey and you get in touch with something really, really big and you don't know how to land with it in your reality, then you're like, I'll just take more medicine. Then that's when it kind of becomes a bit of a problem.
So, Angela, you're the founder of Altered Healing, which is Nova Scotia's first cannabis-assisted psychedelic therapy practice. That's fucking cool. How did you get there? What was the journey that took you into that space? And where does one learn how to to offer this?
I mean, so it's been kind of a wild one. So I was born in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and I came here to the city for university, and I got a degree in psychology. And then my second year of university, my dad died suddenly, and I was like, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. Actually, I'm going to leave. I thought I wanted adventure. I wanted to run away. However, it's what I needed at the time. So I moved to Ireland, and my plan was to go there for a year, but I ended up just loving the place, and I was able to get a UK passport, and I stayed there for 12. And so I lived there, and I continued my education, and I ended up getting a graduate diploma in counseling and psychotherapy, and I ran my own private practice, and I ran workshops and courses and groups, had a family, and then we all got tired of the rain, so we decided to move to Colorado. And when I first moved to Colorado, I was working in the judicial system. So I was working in addictions and mainly with multiple DUI offenders. But I'd always really been drawn to psychedelics and just the healing that was possible there. I had a lot of my own like recreational experiences with it, but always I was following like the MAPS research on like MDMA. And I just also loved that. And I was like, I know this stuff can work. But I remember thinking as a therapist, I'm like, it's going to put me out of a job. Like it's so effective. And it's just, I was like, I can't compete and I don't want to. I was like, I would love to be able to learn how to work with this. So I found this training program when I was living in Boulder. But they said, like, well, we teach using cannabis. And that's why I was like, I don't think cannabis is a psychedelic. I was like, but I'm really eager to learn. And so then I had that first experience on it that was just so big. And it really changed the kind of that pathway for me. And so after I did all the training, I ended up working within the clinic there, and I was able to train to work with ketamine and cannabis. And I was there when psilocybin was legalized, which was like super cool. Like as a staff, we were all taking like new headshots, and everyone's like, it's not going to pass. It would be amazing if it passed, but it won't. And it passed. So we were all together just being like, oh my God, we're going to be able to start working with psilocybin. I ended up being the first person actually in the States to do a week-long retreat working with like cannabis and psilocybin legally.
Oh, wow.
So it was like just really cool to like be there at that time and be able to like work with that. But then kind of we'd lived there for about, I don't know, probably about almost 4 years. And then in 2023 moved back here and was really kind of curious. Like, I don't know what the appetite's going to be for it here. But I was like, everyone knows cannabis. They don't know it in this way. And I had to kind of work on my own fear of like judgment or people being like, I'd ask people, they might ask me like, what is it you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a psychedelic therapist. So like drugs, psychedelics. I'm like, but for healing. They're like, okay.
All right, hippie.
Not for partying?
Yeah, they're like, I was somewhere and this woman came up and she like read one of my brochures. She's like, psychedelics. She's like, I've never heard of it for therapy. She's like, we used to do psychedelics and you know, I don't know if it's the same. Like, it's the same. I was like, so you know how you used to walk around, like look at the world on psychedelics? She's like, yeah. I was like, so imagine that, but eyes closed, internal. She's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like,
Got it.
No, I know.
Easy sell.
Yeah, easy. She was like, interesting. And so, yeah, so it's been really nice to be back here and like for me to come back and like be in such a different place than when I left, like feeling so like I've been able to like heal so much of myself in such a remarkable way, thanks to like therapy. But then like was like a great foundation. And then like the psychedelic work and community have been the things that have really been like a touchstone for me. And then being able to like build community here in this world has been really, really nice.
So what is cannabis-assisted psychedelic therapy? How does it differ from other forms of therapy that most people are probably somewhat familiar with?
I imagine one big thing is that when I do therapy, sometimes I'll do it at like 10 in the morning and then I'll go to work at like 11:30.
Yeah.
And I imagine
It's difficult
that's
to do
kind
that.
of different.
Yeah. And the sessions are longer. So it's kind of, the setup is, I have the same setup for any medicine that I work with. And so I'd always, like before any medicine is taken, we will always do like a prep session, at least one, to really figure out like what are your intentions. So it's like my goal is to make sure that whoever I'm working with feels as safe as possible to go to wherever they need to. I don't know where that is. I don't need to know where that is. It's like ideally it's some like ideas that I can support them getting there, but in the way of like I trust that whoever I'm working with, like their body has the wisdom and the medicine has the wisdom. So it's like they will go where they need to go. I just need to make sure they feel safe enough to go there. So the prep session is really talking about like what does make you feel safe. So many people have no idea. So many people have never felt safe in their body, mind, or soul. And so it's more so it's like, well, what makes you feel unsafe? How do we make sure that is not present? How do I make sure I am not bringing that out? And then we really look at, someone might say like, I'm anxious and I'm depressed. It's like, okay, that is your lived everyday experience. We do not have to bring that into the session. Envision you are not feeling that. What would you want to feel instead? And it's like, what are the words you'd use to describe it? How does your life look? And then that's the things that I bring in. So when they're actually in the medicine session, it would be things like connect to fulfillment, explore what peace feels like. And so then people, it's there somewhere. And it's just like when you're in the space and when you actually feel safe enough to go there, when you don't have, like in talk therapy, we can choose not to talk about shit. We can just decide like, hey, that thing over there, never going to talk about. In this work, like if you feel safe enough, you can just go there. So a lot of people have these blocks and they just know, they're like, I know there is something on the other side of this and I can't get to the other side of it. The medicines help them do it. So
and are they talking through those things out loud?
Sometimes. So I offer them to, like, I take notes. I'm almost like a scribe. And then I write everything and I type them up and send them to them, whoever it is that I work with. But so throughout, I just check in. I'll be asking things like, what are you noticing? What are you connected to? And then they will share. And then my goal is to deepen it. So it's like, although part of my training was how to hold space, the other part is like, how do I deepen this? And instead of like in therapy where you'd be like, let's make sure we're not going to, it's like, no, we're diving right in. It's like, because you need to be able to work through what it is that's coming up. And so, yeah, it might be me checking in. Sometimes people share, sometimes they don't. But they might be like, oh, I want to remember this, and then I'll write it down. And it's more so me just, if I'm even just repeating their intentions, reminding them to breathe, making sure that they're connecting to whatever it is they need to connect to. And so with the cannabis experience, I usually do 2 sessions because the first one kind of like opens us up and the second allows us to land. If we just do one, people just don't often feel fully grounded.
Right.
And then we do an integration session after. And so the shape of the session, it can be 3 hours, it can be 5 hours, but we get a lot done in the 3 hours. I also am trained to work with breath work. So then on the second session, we can do breath work. And breath work just like amplifies everything further. And so people will usually have like the breath work seems to either make people have like in super intense psychedelic experiences that they're like meeting ancestors, elders, healing from past lives, or like for myself, I'll just become like one with the universe. Like one point I was literally spread out. It was like a DMT or like it was just like spread out over everything. And like, so it's wild. And it's really cool because some people are like, this is not cannabis. I'm like, it is. I promise it is.
So they're the person that you're working with is like sitting, laying, having an experience that could be in mostly silence. It could be you also like chiming in and guiding them, or there could be a dialogue. But like obviously there's a spectrum, but it could be on like interactive with you to like almost complete silence and just being with them as they have an experience.
Exactly. And it's like, if we think of anything traumatic or difficult, the part that was often traumatic wasn't always the trauma. It was that, where the fuck was everyone? Why was there no one there? Why were we not able to, like, why did something terrible happen and we weren't able to ask for help? And so when we get in touch with these things, then it's like just having a witness is what's so healing. So it's like people will cry, connect to emotion, but they'll also connect to joy. And I will make sure they memorize that because it's like, people are like, oh, I'd like to be happier. And it's like, where do you have joy in your life? Like, I don't have joy. It's like, okay, so when you connect to joy, which always inevitably happens in the session, because it's not all, it's like for so many people, they're like, healing is hard work. And I'm like, maybe healing is about finding some ease. You know, maybe we need to find some of that. And it's like, you can't bring these things in unless you're experiencing them. So what they'll do is they're like, I feel joy. I'm like, where do you feel in your body? They'll like, say it's like their core. I'm like, okay, what color is it? Like, it's yellow. I'm like, okay, does it have like a vibrational quality? Like, or does it have a shape? They're like, oh, it's like an orange, circle that is yellow and it feels like it's glowing. I'm like, okay, so you're going to breathe into that feeling and you're going to try to let it expand to every part of your body, mind, and soul. It's like every cell is going to memorize. And then it's like they will literally feel like they're glowing. And then that's always there. And so it's like the hard stuff needs to be worked through, but the good stuff needs to be felt.
Do you think because, so like, for people who have never been to therapy before or have like not gone to a yoga class, let's say, like what you just described might seem like you're describing specifically a psychedelic experience, but like as somebody who does talk therapy, and my therapist sometimes does EMDR, or I'll close my eyes and try to feel sensations in my body. Like those are what you described is something that you can feel without psychedelics. And I'm curious from your perspective, like how does the cannabis as a psychedelic amplify that, or is that like sort of the goal that you're trying to achieve with that, to like bring out that thing that maybe you can access without it, but it just sort of unlocks it in a new or more intense way, maybe?
Yeah, it seems to be like the level of safety that the nervous system feels that allows it to go to like a deeper place, or it's like allows us to like to connect to something in a different way. And like I often work with people where they're like, I've been doing EMDR for a while and it's like, but I just need, so it's like they might use some of those skills. Or I really like parts work, like IFS, because it's like you can do, it's like, because the parts of ourselves can actually dialogue. So it's like, okay, so many people are like always in their head because it's safer, because being in our emotions and our body is terrifying and has been. And so we can literally have them dialogue. And so it's like, it just seems to allow these parts of self that we just wouldn't always feel as comfortable tapping into. And sometimes it's also just harder to do it on our own. And so it's like, again, having the support of me kind of guiding them or reminding them, or it's like feeling fully relaxed enough to be able to tap into it, because not everyone seems to be able to tap into it kind of any other way. But it does then also, it certainly amplifies as well.
I find, I just want to say to that, so like I've also done parts work with my therapist, and I really enjoy that. But one thing I've noticed is that I feel like I burn a lot of calories, mental energy, trying to get myself to the place where I can do that. And one thing I notice about like when I smoke weed is like it doesn't take a lot of energy to like go to that place, so like you can be more present in that space. And so I find that would, not that I've done cannabis-assisted psychedelic therapy, but
I mean, maybe you kind of have, but it's like you could also do this stuff. Like I would invite anyone, like if they feel safe and landed and grounded enough and resourced enough in their body to like smoke a little bit of cannabis and just have this little inner, like just notice like what is it that comes up. It's going to just shine a light on things, and it's like making sure that we're resourced enough to be able to like hold whatever it is that comes up.
I mean, we've talked on the show in the past about psychedelic assisted therapy. In particular, we had Thomas Hartle on the podcast, and Thomas was the first Canadian who was given compassionate access to psilocybin, and he was using it because he had terminal cancer, and it was, he was using it to work through the existential angst that comes with a terminal diagnosis. And when I hear about his journey and using psilocybin for that, I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. As someone who's pretty familiar with psilocybin and also familiar with like existential life shortening angst, like I was like, okay, I can piece those two things together. We had another woman on named Emily. I'm not able to recall her last name now, but she is a therapist who utilizes MDMA, and she spoke about how MDMA is like really effective in treating people with PTSD, so that they can like shed the walls that they surround themselves with and be able to actually like look at the problem. Or another example would be couples therapy. It's really great for like opening up and cultivating the sense of empathy in a relationship where there's a lot of animosity or seated anger. When you think about cannabis and the types of healing that you've noticed it really work for, are there any that sort of stand out, like we see with MDMA and psilocybin? Like, what are the sorts of issues that you've seen working with this medicine that you're like, oh, it's really great for anxiety or trauma or depression? Is there a select few of those things that you see it really works well for, or is it more kind of like generally? It's pretty bitching for a lot of different issues.
I mean, it can be. I feel like it can mimic sometimes like the therapeutic MDMA experience in the way that you can move through trauma. Like I've worked with people before that have been able to like, again, because it can have this somatic aspect of being able to like heal things that are trapped in the body. Because again, like, we watch a lion chases a gazelle. The gazelle gets away. The first thing it does is it shakes its whole body over to regulate. We don't do that. We really we don't give the time or space to like how much our body holds. And so often in the cannabis experience, people will shake, they'll twitch, and it's like their body is literally like shaking out this past trauma. I've worked with folks who they've been able to like wean off their antidepressants. So it's like, what I say is like, so I work, I have the pleasure of working with 3 different medicines because I work with a clinic in Bedford called Holos, and I do at-home ketamine treatment with them. So like I bring kind of these skills and I get to like help people deepen and have like an intentional ketamine medicine experience. Like ketamine is wonderful for like anxiety and depression, pattern breaking, addiction, things like that. It's like so healing. And then I'm collaborating with this Canadian company called Blue Stem, and we're like working on like bringing psilocybin. Specifically, we're doing a pilot program here in Nova Scotia, and we're going to be working with veterans to be able to offer psilocybin in a way that's like safe and effective, and like following all the research that has proven like it is great for anxiety and depression and for PTSD. And then I get to work with cannabis, which is like incredible because it can also help with all of those other things. But really what happens is like someone will call me and I'll talk to them for like, we'll do a 20-minute discovery call, and I just have to figure out like what they feel drawn towards. Some people are like, okay, they're like, I feel like, I want to do psilocybin, but I am terrified and I don't want to have to go buy this. I can't get SAP approval. I can't, and it's like, okay, so why don't we work with cannabis? They're like, I don't know, cannabis is a psychedelic? I'm like, yeah. And it's like sometimes for them, it's like I don't have to do something that's like illegal, even though the fact that psilocybin is illegal is bananas. That's another thing. Like Blue Stems they have an app to try to make the SAP approval process more streamlined. But like when I think back, like there's indigenous cultures that have been working with this as a medicine for forever. Probably humans have been working with this as a medicine forever. But again, if I'm looking at like nervous system regulation, and that's really what a lot of us need, then it's like we need to work with a legal medicine. And so it's like, well, that'll give ketamine or cannabis. And sometimes people aren't resourced enough to work with cannabis. They're like, if anyone has suicidal ideation, I would be like, we're going to start with ketamine, because it's like, someone who has suicidal ideation and then they have an incredible psilocybin experience and they meet God, they're not afraid of death anymore. They're like, well, I could just end my life. It's totally fine. It's like, okay, so that was not the way we thought it was going to go. So it's like all of these medicines, MDMA included, they all have this space, LSD too, like all of them have been proven to help and to support. But I'm not someone who's like, drugs for everyone. Yeah. It's more, it's like there has to be, like I have a safety questionnaire people have to fill out. I talk to them. I really get a sense. And sometimes people will like opt out of the experience. Like I'll send them all my paperwork. They're like, ooh, this sounds
too much.
This is too big. Too big. I'm like, okay, not right now. And that's okay. So it's like I think each medicine has their place, and it really has to depend. Like I talk to someone and I give them like the outline of like, these are the different medicines. These are what they can do. And then they'll say like, I'm actually feeling really called to work with ... And it's like, I trust that. Like, I trust that almost more. And there's sometimes where people will, like, I've done discovery calls, or like, I'm going through a court case, I'm doing this. And I was like, well, we're not going to do anything illegal. Yeah. You're going to stay. I was like, you're just going to work with a medicine that's legal, and you're going to do that. And it's like, that's all we need to do. And again, like people can go through the process of being able to work with psilocybin in a legal way. It just takes a long time. Yeah. There's people who are on a list and trying to get approval. And it's just like, so it's like I'm coming from the place of how do we have harm reduction? How do we support people that are going to be using these medicines, but doing it in a really safe way?
Sorry, I have a question that pertains to like education, getting into this, and
I was gonna go a little bit more.
You're both going different.
We're both going in different directions.
All right, here I'll hit this, and then we can jump into it.
I have a question that's on the topic. Actually. just really quick, just about research in general around. So like when I hear you talk about the use of these drugs, it sounds almost like oh, if you're open to having a positive experience, you can see benefits from using these things, and I'm curious if like that feeling is what leads to positive results, or can you point more specifically to like research that's like, oh, here's why these drugs are good for the different reasons that you just mentioned? Like is there research that you know of?
So the Johns Hopkins research, which had worked with psilocybin, they had folks do like I think it was only one psilocybin journey, and they had pretty much cured their depression. When they checked in with them a year later, they still didn't have depression return.
That's crazy.
And they also, there's research on specifically cannabis, and they have found that like the expectations we have about what cannabis will do for us impacts what it does for us. So when people are working with me and I'm like, this is going to heal you. Sometimes I'll tell people like, what if you were to believe in miracles for like one day? What if you were just to believe that anything, like, it could be possible? And so it's like, once people start to feel that hopefulness, it's like that can be embodied. Ketamine's been proven to work for anxiety and depression. It's just not long term. And so often people just might need another kind of top up. And MDMA, they've done a lot of research specifically with PTSD. And it has been found they've been able to cure PTSD in 6 MDMA sessions.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
But it didn't get full approval yet, just because of the way there was just some sketchy things that were happening with practitioners. And then the downside, especially with MDMA, is the serotonin drop after.
Yeah.
And so it can be a downer.
Like I asked that question because I was thinking of like I have people in my life, family or close friends who suffer from like complex PTSD or a chronic depression, and I always think of these people when I have these types of conversations because it seems like the type of person who's like tried everything and like nothing seems to work, and it's like, oh well, have you tried any of these psychedelic treatments? And they also seem to be like the people who are most have the most reservations around doing it. And so like whenever we have a conversation like this, I'm like, oh, how can I learn more about this and like the research behind it? So that hopefully.
Well, and like ketamine's a good way in for people who are like trusting more the medical model instead of the more woo-woo model, where I'm a little more woo-woo, but I do trust also the medical model, because ketamine is like it's like a very, it's commonplace in like all hospitals. It's usually used as a sedative. However, when given in the right amounts, it allows, they describe it as a disassociative, but you're not disassociating, you are disconnecting from your body. And so the whole thing is that then you can like observe things in a new way. And it's why it allows people to change patterns and have this different perspective. But because you can literally like the clinic I work with, Holos, it's like you can go to a doctor and say, I would like to work with this medicine. And they're like, okay, great. Here's an intake. Here's it like, and it's like a medically prescribed thing that you can do. And so it is a good way. And like with Holos, what we're doing is we're offering like group ketamine experiences. So like people can be in community, and it also makes it cheaper. And it also allows people, because ketamine isn't like an experience where like people are just kind of in it. Like you're floating in space or you're floating underwater, and there's not usually a lot of dialogue because you're also like numb in your mouth and your hands. And so it's like, it's very different than like a plant-based medicine. However, it can be so healing. And so we had started, it was the first time it was ever offered in Nova Scotia, and we're jumping into like a new season of like offering these group ketamine experiences where people get to like, we have our prep sessions in person or in all of us in a group. So everyone's kind of sharing like, this is what I want to work on. This is what I want to expand on. And then we do the integration as well. And it's like community is something that's just so missing from these types of experiences. And it's the way it was always meant to be. Like we were never meant to do these things completely solo. And so I'll always ask people, even when I'm working with them, like they can continue to integrate with me, but I'm like, who's your community? Like who else, like who's another, at least one or two people you can talk to about these experiences, because it helps us land.
Guys, this should be our next Patreon hang.
Like on the recreational side,
on
the recreational side, like, I mean, I feel like that is, because when I think about our recreational MDMA use, which is usually, maybe we've like rented a cottage for the weekend and we're all there, or we're going to see Rich. But really the experience is always in a wrapper of like, there's going to be like 10 of us who are best friends, and we're just going to have like a therapeutic love session for 4 hours. And like the only reason I'm taking this drug is to be with all of you and to like fully express how in love with you I am. On every level.
It's really nice.
For the last 10 years.
It's like a wonderful way to connect.
Yeah. And it's like, and so like, even as I think about like the recreationality of that experience, I'm like, there really always is this very intentional, friendship, love experience like wrapped in it.
It's like you're not surprised it's used for.
Oh, I'm very much not. I'm very much not
sense.
surprised. But the question that I wanted to ask earlier was around the use of, in cannabis specifically. Like I'm actually covering a company that grows here for medical distribution, and it's kind of prompted me to think about like the way that cannabis is very similar to wine in the way that like I don't know why a certain cannabis makes me feel way better than like another one does, but like I know it when I have it. I'm just not exactly sure why. And same with wine. It's like I have a wine and like I know I like this one. I'm not exactly sure why. It just feels right. So in a world where like the subjective experience of like a certain flower is subjective, how do you go about choosing what you use?
Yeah, so I use a very particular blend. So who I trained with is this man named Daniel McQueen, and he wrote a book called Psychedelic Cannabis. And so I then got to train with him. And so he had kind of found this blend kind of through he just kind of figured it out. And so it's sativa indica hybrid with a high THC content and equal parts of all three. And so the whole thing is usually when people have an indica, they end up sleepy. When they have a sativa, they can often end up anxious. But when you mix the hybrid with them, it makes the indica just allows you to feel relaxed, and it makes the sativa just make your body feel or your mind feel energized, but not anxious. And so because of all these things work together, it allows this interesting psychedelic experience. But it's gotten to the point where I don't need the blend. It's I can just use cannabis and I am in that space. But what I do is I send people, I don't provide the cannabis. I'm not a dispensary. So I'll tell anyone I'm working with, I was you can just go to the NSLC or go to an indigenous dispensary. You just say you need these 3 types. This is what kind of the outline. In Colorado, it was great because you could go into any of the dispensaries and they would just open a jar and you could just smell. And then it would be then you'd get a better sense of what it is you're drawn to. All the ones I always love were apple pie and cookie crumble, all the sweet ones. I was never what are terrible names skunk dick or just awful. And I was those are not for me. Just terrible names. But so you could smell them and then choose and be oh, that's for me. Where here it's you just don't have that option.
Yeah.
But it still works every time, which is interesting. And I've worked with people who smoke a ton and they're I don't know if it'll work for me. I was I promise it will. You just might have to smoke a little more. And again, it's because of the intentionality. And so it's I'm making sure ideally that they feel safe. And then it's okay, we are here to help you heal. And so when you have that intention, it just allows this extra level of unlocking. And when people are I use cannabis all the time, great, you already use it as a medicine.
Yeah.
It's already geared to be in your body to help you heal. And we're just going to amplify that a little bit.
So I have 2 questions and they're completely separate.
Totally
I'll jump on this one that sort of pertains to what you were just talking about before going off and talking a little bit more about your work as a therapist and the transition into this particular work. But with the first I'll say this: it's very funny for folks listening. If you're listening from the States, I know we have a lot of U.S. listeners up here in Nova Scotia. You just go to the liquor store.
Yeah, the government gives you your drugs.
Which is really funny to think that you're a therapist and your first sort of meeting is okay, what I need you to do is go to the liquor store and go into this little back room where they, where you might think they also sell porn. They gotta it's gotta be behind the curtain. Out. Yeah. And go find your favorite blend.
Those little
that's
back of the convenience store.
Hilarious. But when you are working with, so say you have someone come in, let's say I come in, right?
Yep.
So I can't smoke, or at least I'm not supposed to smoke because I have cystic fibrosis. Do you work with folks in the edible space?
Yeah.
Cool. If someone's coming in who is not, let's say someone's coming in who's a little bit of a lightweight, they're not an active user of marijuana. How much are we saying? If so, I come in and I can smoke and I'm I don't really use weed that much. How much weed am I going to smoke for this session?
Yeah. So I use a vaporizer, a flower vape, because it gets it to a really high temperature and it releases the terpene profile that also impacts our bodies more effectively. So what I usually tell people, just get 1 gram of each, and we don't even usually use it up.
Okay.
And so depending on I've worked with some people where they're I am slightly terrified. And I'm that's okay. So then instead, because when we do the imbibing ceremony, so again, the smoking ceremony, they're invited to inhale on each direction. So there's 7 directions. However, when people are I'm really nervous, I'm okay, so what we're going to do, we don't even have to start with the ceremony. You can just have an inhale and then we're just going to keep talking.
What do you mean in direction? Face the north, take a toke.
It's it would be turning your awareness to the east, turn your way. Yeah, so I do it's east, west, south, north, and then we do below, above, and within.
Oh, interesting.
You were kind of joking, Jared, when you said
I was.
It is.
Yeah. I thought it was more direction, take take a hit and think about your
So it's
childhood.
So each like, for example, I'd say like turn your awareness to the east, and I get you like imagine the Atlantic Ocean and the waves, and it's the east is connected to the direction of like clear vision and new beginnings.
Oh, okay.
So I would get you to like, it's like, so I want you to envision like clear, like how you are able to remain focused in this experience. And then as I get to the end of that direction, I say, and with this breath, we take this medicine, and then that would be your invitation to inhale. So we do that 7 times.
Cool. Sweet.
However, if you smoke a bunch, then people might inhale twice on each direction. For edibles, it's usually like people have to know their dose with edibles.
Yeah.
So if I'm working with people who don't really have a relationship with cannabis, I get them to smoke because you can control it. Edibles are so wonky. Like, it's like, how much have you eaten today? How are you feeling? What's your, like, all of these things. And the timing is just a little different, where with smoking, I have it perfect. I know the cadence so specifically. And people can smoke throughout the experience. I get them just to kind of trust their body and intuition. I don't tell them how much they need to have, even with the directions. I'm like, and that's your invitation to inhale.
Yeah. So I'm a 10 milligram Timmy, right? 10 milligrams every time.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So you'd take more than that to do this.
Totally. How much would you suggest that I
Usually
take?
just like 25% more, but it depends. Like I do online circles sometimes, and I had someone who ended up took like way too much. And so then I was on with them for much longer. And it was like, it was just one of those things where like, I miscalculated. I'm like, that's fine. We've all done it.
Yep.
All been there.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
It's
Save
the
space.
worst.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
It's not enjoyable. It's not a nice experience to have. And so with this, it's like just the setup is a little different if someone's going to be working with edibles. But yeah, I know how to do that. It's just with smoking, it's easier. And then the whole thing is I'm teaching people how to do this.
Yes.
Like ideally, that's my goal. Is it's like, okay, so now you have the blend. This is the vape I use. I don't get commission on the vape. I wish I did, man. Everyone's like, what's that vape?
Yeah.
I send them one of the playlists that I use because music is a huge part of it. And then I've taught them, like, this is how you explore the space. This is what it's like. And then I encourage them to continue journeying on their own, at least about once a month. And I was like, if you have a big experience, like, email me, call me, we can still chat. But like, I had a client once be like, are you trying to like work yourself out of a job? Like, what are you? I was like, wouldn't it be great if everyone was so healed that they didn't have to, like, wouldn't that be who, like, of course, that would be so good. And so it's really interesting because it's like what I'm doing is not covered by insurance. I offer a sliding scale because it's like if people feel really called to do this work, then they're called to do this work. And money is just not a reason I'm not going to work with them. Yeah. And so I've had to kind of battle my own sense of like scarcity and really be like, well, is this, but also feeling like it's just too important. So that's kind of so it's like teaching people to be able to do it though, so that we have these sessions together, and then I might not hear from them for like a year.
So, okay, when you trained as a psychotherapist, you went to school, you went through all the same books and all the same tests, and you come out and you're working as a psychotherapist, and you have these like tools in your tool belt. Then you go and do this training for cannabis-assisted psychedelic therapy. Within that process of that training, did you notice that there was like aspects of what you've been taught that you needed to push aside to allow this like novel form of therapy into your practice? Or was it just a very complementary to your education and what you've been taught, or what you thought to be what's behind psychotherapy? Right.
So the official like training was like mindfulness-based psychedelic guide or therapy training, so that I can work with numerous different medicines, but coming from this like mindfulness-based approach of like, how do we get people to turn towards the experience? And I found in my psychotherapy training, it was very much like, this is what a therapist does.
Yes.
And do it. And I felt like in the training I did as a psychedelic therapist, it was much more like, come as you are, and we're going to teach you the skills to build on. And so one of the things I always really struggled with, and I didn't realize it till I started this work as a therapist, was like, people would come to me and be like, oh my God, my life's a mess. Like, what do I do? And I was like, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. We'll figure it out together. But feeling like this very real power imbalance of like someone coming and being like desperate and needing this help, and me feeling like I need to have the answers, which was also my own shit. Like, I need like needing, like me not being comfortable in the I don't know space. And then like stepping into this work and it's like, oh, I don't have to know.
Right.
It's really not, I have no idea. And what I love about it is that I really fully trust the people that I'm working with and the medicine. So it's like what I've had to park is just that idea of like, none of us know what the other person needs, but we all each know somewhere. Like this, there is this inner wisdom. And there's this like inner calling or inner pull of like just that intuitive sense of like, this is for me. And I feel like what I love about being in the medicine space is that I just get to sit in it. And when people are telling me about their experiences, I'm just imagining with them. I'm being fully in their experience with them. And I believe, like, I've always been someone's like, even as a therapist, people would come in and be like, you know, someone who has like any maybe traumas or things, but like they've been denied. People would have told them like, no, that didn't happen. Or it's like, which even by other therapists, which like blows my mind. It's like, I believe what people tell me. And it's like, especially in the medicine space, people come out like, I think that was a past life. And I'm like, cool. What does that mean for you? It's like, I don't need to interpret it. It's like, even people are like, they might have different religious beliefs and like, maybe that comes in. It's like, great. But what does it mean for you? And it's really, how do I support them on their own journey? And so I think when, as a therapist, it was much more like, this is what you do, this is what you share, this is what you don't share. And it's like, it's like, it was less relational.
Right.
Where it's like, I can share parts of myself because I need to be authentic and I need them to feel safe. And it's like, they're not going to feel safe if I don't share anything about myself. So it's really been trying to find that balance of like me being as authentic as possible, and like still keeping like incredibly safe boundaries of like time and things like that are so important, that all of those like things that I learned within the psychotherapy space, incorporating that while also adding this other element of of authenticity and trust really deeply in the person, that they are on the right journey of healing for themselves.
What would you say to someone listening who's curious or skeptical or just feel like they've like hit a wall with their current therapy?
I mean, I think like that's a good chance to kind of explore what could be next. There's always like, and it depends, because sometimes people are like, oh, I've got this wall. I'm like, yeah, walls keep us safe. So it's also figuring out, it's like, is that wall there because you're not ready to go, you know, break through or be what's on the other side? It's like, we live in a culture of like, we must always be healing and doing something. It's like, maybe right now you're supposed to be at that wall and stop. You know, like, it's like, we don't always have to be on the journey of doing so much. It's like, maybe right now it's about a pause. But for people who are feeling called, that like, they know they can be more fulfilled on the other side of like working with these medicines, then I would trust that. And I would, you know, encourage people to look into what feels aligned. The amount of stories that are out there about people working with numerous different medicines is huge. Like, the amount of medicines that are also possible to work with is never ending. I only work with a few of them. And so, yeah, I trust that intuitive sense. If someone's like, ooh, I think that sounds like, I think that's what I need. It's like, great. Then that's what you need.
If someone listening to this is, you know, they know that they're in the area and they want to
they're being called.
They're being called right now. How can people find you and your work?
Yeah. So Altered Healing is the name of my company. I'm on all the socials. I'm based here in Halifax, but I also do virtual sessions for folks if they were interested in the cannabis work. And I also know other cannabis practitioners in different places if they were curious. But yeah, Altered Healing, they could find me. Just put that in. I think I'm the only Altered Healing around.
Cool. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing. It's been really, really fascinating.
I'm glad.
Yeah.